This video is about using Google Forms with your videos. By the end of this video, you should be able to create a Google form that includes your video. You should be able to add and edit questions within your Google form. You should be able to share your Google form with others, and you should be able to view student responses in Google Forms. In order to create a new Google form, you'll need to go to your Google Drive account. Click New, and scroll down to More and select Google Forms. The first thing I want to do is name my form. Clicking here will cause whatever is typed here to also be the thing that your form is saved under. Next, you're going to want to make some decisions about the format of your form and who can view it. Clicking Settings allows you to do this. First, I highly recommend that you collect email addresses of people that complete your form. This will allow you to keep track of which of your students have completed it and which haven't. I've also chosen to restrict my form to only people who are logged into their school accounts. You can also choose to limit number of responses, whether or not they can edit their form, and so on. Be sure to click Save once you're done here. Another interesting thing is that you can turn your form into a quiz by clicking Quizzes and selecting Make this a quiz. It allows students to review their answers, and it also grades their submissions. Of course, this will create some limitations. Google Forms is unable to grade things like short answer responses. You can still include them in your quiz, but it won't give them a grade. It will, however, grade multiple choice questions, checkbox questions, matching questions, and so on. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to not make this a quiz, although I often do use this feature. If you click on Presentation, you can control the message that students see after they've completed their form. Usually, the default message says something like, "Thank you for completing this form," or "Your responses have been recorded." I changed this confirmation message here to say, "Thank you for completing this assignment. You can check your answers here." Then I include the URL of a Google Doc that has the answer key to this form. This is useful if I've chosen to not make the form a quiz, since students have no other way of getting direct feedback on the work they've just done. Anything I want to insert, I can do so with this menu here. First, I'm going to input the video that this form is going to focus on. I can search YouTube for a video, or I can use the URL of the video that I've made. Here, I'm going to paste in my URL and select this video that I've just made. The video will now appear in your form. I usually resize the video, make it a little bit bigger. Students, of course, have the option of watching this in YouTube full screen by clicking on it right from the form. However, I like to make it big enough that students can view it directly in the form as well. You can also click here to center your video or align it to a different side. Once your video is embedded, now you want to start entering some questions. Here, I'm going to start typing in my question. And I also want to decide what format I want the question to be. I can choose from any of these options. I find that short answer and multiple choice tend to be the ones that I use most often, although there's all kinds of useful formats. So if I choose multiple choice, I can start entering choices for students. Of course, I'd fill these in with a bit more detail. You can also click this image here if you want to actually enter an image as a choice, which is pretty interesting. Then be sure to decide whether or not you want to make this a required question. The default is that the question is not required and can be skipped. I make all my questions required, so you want to click that button there. To add a new question, again, hit the plus sign and type in your next question. The next question could be a different format. For example, a short answer question, which gives students space to type their answer. Again, be sure to mark it required. I often also find it helpful at the end to add some optional questions, such as, do you have any feedback about this video? Or do you have any questions about the content of this video? These I won't mark required because I don't need students to answer them. However, I find particularly if I ask students to ask questions about the video, These questions can be useful jumping off points for subsequent classes and can allow me to correspond via email directly with individual students if they have questions. I've now changed the format of this same form to a quiz so I can show you how to enter an answer key. Again, going back to my first question, I'm going to click Answer Key at the bottom. Here, I'll select the correct answer. I can also add answer feedback. So sometimes I go to correct answers and give my students a little encouragement should they get something correct, or I can give direct feedback to incorrect answers by typing here. You can also include a link to a document, for instance, if you want to link them to something explaining how to do a particular problem. You can also assign a point value by clicking here. I'm going to assign this a 1 point value. Once I'm done with the answer key, I usually click Edit Question again. This will get me back into editing mode in case I want to change anything in the question and not the answer key portion. Once I'm done creating my form, I can preview it by clicking here. This is what the form will look like to your students. I can go back to editing mode by clicking the pencil here, or I can just simply go back to the tab I had open previously. Now I want to share my form, so I'm going to click Send. I can email a link, or what I choose to do is just click here on this link and a URL will appear. I can copy this URL. If I'm bothered by the length, I can click Shorten URL and copy that shorter version of the URL. I then post these links on my class website for students to access. Once students have viewed the video, you can see how many responses you have by looking here. Clicking on responses allows you to see how students did. Notice I'm in the Summary tab here, so first I'll get an overview of their scores if I've selected to make it a quiz. If it's not a quiz, you won't get this graph here. Then you can look down at the email addresses of the students who have completed the form. I use this to monitor whether or not students are completing the forms on time. Then you can look at how students did on each question. I use this to see if there's particular questions that students struggle with. You'll see here that by and large most students got the questions correct. The green line represents the correct answer and the number of students who chose that answer. This gives me important information to start my next class. If there's a particular question that students have really struggled with, I might begin next class with that question. I can also view individual responses by clicking here. This allows me to go through each individual student and see how they did on each question. Likewise, I can get this information in a spreadsheet by clicking this button here. I'll create a new spreadsheet, and here all of the students will appear with their score and their answer to each question. If you haven't elected to make your form a quiz, your responses page will look a little bit different. Again, we'll have email addresses of students who completed it above, but down here, instead of showing the correct answers and the number of students who got the correct answer, you'll simply see the number of students who selected each answer. This is because you haven't told Google which answer is the correct one. That brings us to the end of this video. Let's review our goals. First, we looked at how to create a Google form that includes your video. Then we looked at how to add and edit questions within your Google form, how to share your Google form with others, and how to view student responses in Google Forms.